Hello friends and welcome back to Generation Pixel, and if you're new to the channel, well, you've picked a great day because I'm going to talk to you about logs. Not just any logs, I'm going to talk about the backlog and the frontlog. Now everyone knows the backlog is that big list of games you have that you haven't got round to playing yet. Well, the frontlog, believe it or not, are the big list of games that haven't been released yet that you want into your collection. And that today is what I'm going to talk about. So if you want to see 5 games coming off the backlog in 2022 and 5 games coming onto the frontlog, will you just wait until after these? Now to start with, I thought we'd look forward and take a glimpse at a game that's coming onto the frontlog. So a game that's not released yet that will definitely be making its way into my collection. And the very first game in 2022 that will be making its way into my collection, Horizon Forbidden West. And that was an absolute no-brainer for me. Horizon Zero Dawn is a 10 out of 10 game for me. It's one of my top 10 games of all time from any system whatsoever. And its sequel, which we knew was coming, was definitely going to make its way into the collection. And not only is it going to make its way onto the frontlog, it won't even sit on a backlog. No, that game will be completed the second it comes in. Well, obviously not the second it comes in. It will be completed within the 30 to 60 hours that it probably takes to complete after I get it. Now there is one small problem with Horizon Forbidden West. Well, it gets released in February the 18th and I mistakenly was goaded into joining in on No Fun February by retro rivals, and probably more specifically Jen, because she seems to push this more than Scott does.
What we also wanted to do, we didn't want to name anybody specifically.
No.
Because not everybody will want to participate. However, we would like to do a follow-up video in March.
See if I actually make it.
Yeah, we may have to do it from a psychiatric facility.
You're gonna be laughing.
Yeah, I don't buy a lot of games.
I'll be cracking.
So I won't be able to pick it up at launch. So it's going to be March the 1st before I get my hands on this game, but it will still be the first game that makes it onto my frontlog, and it will definitely be the first game from the frontlog that gets completed, probably as early as mid-March.
This mission is mine alone. If I falter, if I fail, there won't be anyone left to stop what's coming.
Now let's look backwards and let's look at a game that's coming off the backlog, and the first game coming off the backlog is none other than Super Mario World on the Super Nintendo. Now I've just recently picked this up because I've just recently picked up a Super Nintendo for the first time, and I didn't pick this up for any purpose other than it was sitting there at the time with the console, and I thought if I'm getting one I'll get the other. And due to all the comments on the pickups video about how loved this game is, well, I had to make this the first Super Nintendo game and the first Mario game that I have ever completed. So there we go, the community has spoken, and Super Mario World will be the first game that I take off the backlog for the Super Nintendo, and it will be the first ever Mario game that I've ever played, never mind taking off a backlog. So wish me luck with this wonderful 2D platformer. So looking forward again, it's another game coming onto the frontlog, and this time it's going to be none other than Tiny Tina's Wonderland. Now anyone who doesn't know what that is yet, well, it's quite simple. It's a spin-off from Borderlands, you know, that wonderful cel-shaded looter shooter that everybody seems to love. Well, I don't quite love it, but enjoyed it. But when I found out that Tiny Tina's Wonderland is going to be a similar sort of game in that universe, but with Dungeons and Dragons and fantasy elements, well, I had no option whatsoever but to put that onto the frontlog, and it will certainly be getting played as soon as I get my paws on it. Because you can't beat a bit of looter shooter with Dungeons and Dragons, that's all I'm saying about it.
Oh, listen to me, lip flapping while you could be off adventuring.
Tina, you left a cheese curl on the board.
Mayhaps it is a powerful ancient meteor, and it begins to rise from the ground.
Moving back to our backlog game, and the next game that I'll be bringing off the backlog is a game I should have brought off in the noughties, but I didn't, and it's Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. Now, as I said, I should have played this game back in the noughties, and the reason I didn't, well, there's two reasons really. One, the main reason, I never had an Xbox, I was always Sony, so I didn't have that option. And two, Star Wars games. I do love a bit of Star Wars, actually I'm fanatical about a bit of Star Wars, but sometimes when it comes to the games, I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with them. I love the idea of a Star Wars game, but I hate that they don't fit in with the canon that sits up there. But this, I've already started playing, and I wish I had played it back in the day. But you know what? I get to enjoy it now, and it certainly is well worth the play, and I'm so happy that this is coming off the backlog in 2022, before the release of the remaster for the PlayStation 5. So casting our eyes forward again, it's another game coming onto the front log, and it's a game that I'm going to avoid as many trailers or reviews or anything for. It's a game that I truly want to go into blind, and that game is none other than Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin. Now, it's supposed to be a retelling of the first Final Fantasy game, which can't be too hard because there wasn't a great deal of story in the first Final Fantasy game. But Final Fantasy as a series, as a franchise, is quite important to me. Anyone who knows me will know that Final Fantasy VII is probably, possibly the greatest game of all time in my humble opinion. And the reason that I want to go into the new ones blind is because that's how I played Final Fantasy VII. I had no idea what Final Fantasy VII was when I popped it into my friend's PlayStation and he told me just to go with it, give it a go, and it absolutely captivated me from start to finish. From then on in, I didn't want to read reviews, I didn't want to look into, well I did with Final Fantasy VIII, and Final Fantasy VIII really disappointed me, but that's another story. So for the new one, Final Fantasy Origin, A Stranger of Paradise, I'm going to avoid everything. I am so looking forward to it. It's a Final Fantasy game, and here's hoping that the small bit of footage that we saw at the Game Awards, I believe it was, is all I managed to catch between now and the release.
When darkness veils the world, 4 warriors of light shall come. I'm Neon, and I only count 3 of you.
Deliver this world from the clutches of darkness.
Looking back again to a game that's coming off the backlog is a game that's probably, no it is, it's the most recent game on this selection of 5 that's to come off the backlog, and that is Breath of the Wild. And the reason that it's on the backlog is because this is the first I've had a Switch. I've only recently picked it up, and this was the reason that I picked up a Switch, this particular game. I have started it and I am enjoying it. It's probably lost a lot of the shine that it would have had if I had played it back on release, but I'm only just out of what I consider the tutorial area. Anyone who's played the game will probably know what I'm talking about. There seems to be a fairly defined tutorial area at the beginning. It's a large tutorial area, but that's what it seems to be, and that's where I am. But this game will definitely be coming off the backlog. As I said, maybe I've lost a little bit of the shine that it would have had if I'd played it on launch, but you know what? It's really good, and I'll play it to the end, and it will definitely come off the backlog, and that's The Legend of Zelda, The Breath of the Wild. So we cast our eyes forward again and look to a game that's coming onto the front log, and this is a bit of an odd one because this game just happens to be a racer, and anyone who knows me, I don't play many racing games, but knowing that I'm a Sony pony and knowing that it's a racing game that's due to be released, I'm sure you've all guessed it's going to be Gran Turismo 7. And yes, I have played the Gran Turismo games since the first one, and I still love playing the first games. The first 2, absolutely fine. 3, 4, 5, absolutely fine. 6, great. Gran Turismo Sport, well, they kind of lost their way a little bit there, but it looks like with Gran Turismo 7 that they're bringing it back in, making it much more that classic feel, which hopefully sends a message to Jim Ryan that Gran Turismo is a great game, and not only is it a great game, that gameplay is king. The graphics are wonderful, I won't take away from the graphics of the modern games, but if it doesn't have the gameplay, then it's not worth playing. It doesn't matter how pretty it is. But I'm hoping that when I bring, of course, Gran Turismo 7 onto the Frontlog, it's going to be a game that I'm playing for quite a while. It's not a game that you set out to complete as such, but a game to sit and enjoy. So Gran Turismo 7 will definitely be coming onto the Frontlog, and I'm looking forward to seeing great gameplay with stunning graphics. So looking back at the backlog again, another game that I should have played a long time ago, and I honestly don't know why, because it's a game on a PlayStation 2, it's a PlayStation 2 game, it's a JRPG, and I love JRPGs, and it's Shadow Hearts, and I don't know why I managed to miss this back in the day, especially since it's part of the Kudelka universe. I would have thought that this would have hit my radar back when it was released straight away. It obviously didn't, but you know what? This is 2022, a long time after the game's release, and I've got a trilogy now, because this is only the first one in the trilogy, which I was fortunate enough to get all 3, but a trilogy of JRPGs on the PlayStation 2 that I have yet to play, that I can sit down and enjoy for the very first time, and I can't explain how good that feels to me. I'm sure there's a few of you out there know this feeling, and it's like new nostalgia. I can't explain it, but Shadow Hearts will definitely come off the backlog, and you never know, maybe the other 2 in the series I'll be able to make time for them too. Now the last game that's coming onto the Frontlog is the game that's probably least likely to make it onto the Frontlog. I do intend to get all the games that I mentioned here onto the Frontlog straight away, but this is the game, if there's one game that doesn't make it there, this is it. And for reasons, and for good reasons, and firstly, the reason that it's an Xbox, and probably it's going to be an Xbox Series game. And secondly, well, it's a Bethesda game, and will Bethesda get it out in time? And will they get it out in time in a playable state? And those are the big questions surrounding this particular game, which no doubt you've already guessed is Starfield. And I want it to happen. I want them to get this game out. I want to play what easygoing gaming, I believe, called a Han Solo simulator, and that's exactly what it's probably going to be like. It's going to be, of course, an Elder Scrolls in space, and what more could any RPG fan want than to be able to do that? Whether or not Bethesda can get it out in time, if they can get it out in a state that's worth playing in, and whether or not it's solely on the Xbox Series and not the Xbox One, other considerations that I have to take in. But I can guarantee you, if it comes out in a very playable state on time, then an Xbox Series will be making its way here, because it's one that I won't want to miss playing.
That's why we're here.
Main engines go. Ignition.
To discover what's out there.
Good luck, Constellation. You are go for launch.
Now last up of course is a Backlog game, and it's a game from the PlayStation 3, and it's the game that's going to get Jen from Retro Rivals off the hook for getting me on the hook with this no fun February and making me miss out on Forbidden West for the first couple of weeks, because that game is a game that she recommended highly and of course reviewed brilliantly. Take a look at that video if you get a chance. No, definitely take a look at that video. And that game is Alice the Madness Returns. Now I cannot sing this game's praises highly enough. I haven't played a game from this era that has made me feel both stunned by not only the graphical fidelity and the look and the art style, but the gameplay is so solid that it knocked my socks off. Normally you would expect a bit of clunk and jank, especially with older games. This, I have experienced nothing. It's been like playing with butter. It's fantastic and I can't recommend it highly enough. As I said, it's got a great, wonderful, dark story running through it, and I don't want to talk too much about it. Go and watch Retro Rivals' review on this. Jen does such a good job of that, and she'll sell you onto playing this game if you haven't played it. And if she doesn't, I'm telling you to play this game if you haven't played it. It's got so much going for it. It's so many wonderful little things to discover in it, and that's not just the story, that's the gameplay itself. So this game I've already started, as you can tell, and it will definitely be off the backlog this year. Alice Madness Returns.
Oh, my wonderland's shattered.
So there you go my friends, that's 5 games that are coming off the backlog and 5 games that are coming on the front log. And yes, I'm making front log a thing. People in the future will no longer say I'm putting a game on my list, they'll say I'm putting that game on my front log. You just wait and see if they don't. Now, thank you very much for watching, and of course if you want to talk about any of the games you've seen today or any of the games that I've spoke about today, drop it down in the comments, because I love nothing more than the interaction between you and me, because that's what makes YouTube special, well in my eyes anyway. And of course if you've got your own channel, then throw out a backlog, front log video of your own. I've seen plenty of people over the last couple of weeks do that already, and it's wonderful to see what people are expecting to play from their backlogs and what they're looking forward to in the future. It's such a wonderful way to share the games around, and maybe we would stop missing the games like Shadow Hearts that I've missed in the part if more people, well, done things like that. So thank you very much for watching my backlog front log video, and until next time, cheerio!